Greetings, everyone. Been away, but now I am back. It's been a few months since I released a video. I've been busy most of the summer and having to deal with other personal issues, things of that nature. But I am back with a positive affirmation for you. And by that positive affirmation, I mean this band that I'm about to rank their albums. Yes. What could be more positive than that? So, we're going to go ahead and get started. This may be a little bit longer than a normal video, or it may not be. I just know that Yes has a lot of albums in their discography. So, we're going to start with my least favorite Yes album, and then we're going to go to my favorite Yes album, just like all the other album ranking videos that I've done prior. So we're going to go ahead and start with my least favorite Yes album, and that's going to be Heaven and Earth. If syrupy nonsense with bland music is what you're looking for, this is the album for you. I would consider it, if I had to describe this album in one word, I would consider it flaccid. To me, it's like generic background music for a foot massage. There's absolutely nothing on this album that stands out to me. No ambition, no risk, anything of that nature. It's just kind of pleasant elevator music. If I'm, something that you might play in the background, like I said, at a spa. Basically, if this album is what a safe space would sound like if it were music. It's, we're talking about like just, it's almost like teddy bear, no anything risky here, nothing dangerous. I mean, there's no challenge here other than trying not to fall asleep. So, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is more dangerous than this album. Heaven and Earth, there's really nothing, like I said, that stands out. All the songs sound like derivatives of the same song. Nothing challenging musically. It does sound like a bunch of old session musicians got together and decided to make just this sort of bland album that people can play in the background. There's really nothing more I can say about this album. So we're going to move on. The next one is Tormato, or Tormato, however you want to say it. I say it Tormato. Although I say tomato. Strange. Okay, there's no standout tracks for me on this album either. This is when, to me, this is when Yes lost their musical ambition. So you're going from 1969's debut album to Relayer, to Going for the One. But after Going for the One, Yes just kind of fell apart with this one. There are some decent albums later on, but this is not one of them. This is stripped down, subpar album of throwaway tracks, as far as I'm concerned. Terrible production. There's really nothing that I enjoy here. It's better than Heaven and Earth, but that's not saying much. I mean, this album is a right mess as far as I'm concerned. I think there's there's nothing really stands out. Circus of Heaven, man, I don't even remember. I don't even remember any songs off this album. I didn't listen to it prior to reviewing it because I've listened to it before. And I am not someone who just listens to an album one time and dismisses it or embraces it. I will give music a chance. This does nothing for me. And the album cover does nothing for me. So, we're going to move on. The next the next album that I have listed is Big Generator from 1987's 80s Yes. And to me, people think that 90125, the hit smash album in '83 was when Yes sold out. I'm going to disagree with that, and I'll explain later. This is when Yes sold out to the mediocre pop of bubblegum 80s to me. There is not even a trace of the remains of the former prog band Yes on this album. I mean, if it does have any redeeming quality, Rhythm of Love is a great pop song. I will give it that, and I do listen to that. But other than that, I mean, what we have here is sort of like a poor man's Duran Duran for the 80s. The production is quality, at least for 80s production, but it's still really nothing to offer here as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to move on to the next album here. The next album is interesting because a lot of people, even on Prog Archives, rank it higher than a lot of the albums that are around that era from, say, 83 to 99. A lot of people rank this album a little bit higher, and it's Talk. I don't understand that. To me, this is okay. Endless Dream is a great song, and it does bring back that progressive element that Yes had throughout their career. So that is one song that I do enjoy off this album. But it's just too bad that it's attached to a tinny produced album chock full of big generator-esque, cheese. I hate the production on this album. It sounds like a cheaper quality attempt of the production of OU812 by Van Halen. Each song is just it's almost like Heaven and Earth. It's just a boring derivative of the other song. You don't really get a quality track until you get to Endless Dream. And that's the only redeeming quality of this album. I don't ever go back to this album unless it is to listen to Endless Dream. So really nothing more to say here. So we're moving on to the next album, and this is going to be Union. This is when the band got back together. It was the two versions of Yes, what they call Yes West and Yes UK, or basically it's the old school Yes guys from the 70s and the 80s version of Yes, and they kind of united and they went on tour. The tour was really good, and if you listen to any of the music from that time, if you watch the video of the Union tour, very good. I mean, I enjoyed it. This, however, is the studio album that they released. And there are some good tracks on this album. Nothing really stands out. It's a little bit more complex than the previous few efforts, and the musicianship does stand out, but overall it's pretty forgettable. And that pretty much sums it up as far as that album is concerned. Now, the next album is going to be a little bit more controversial, because this album seems to rank very low. It seems to rank, I think it's like rated the worst Yes album on Prog Archives. I disagree. Is it progressive? Not really. But it does have little teeny tiny elements of progression in it, much like 90125 does. Nuanced, I suppose. I hate that word, but I'm going to use it here because it fits. And really, this album could be tied with the next album that I'm about to mention, only because there are more tracks off this album that I listen to than the next album, but the next album has a great song on it, and this doesn't have any great songs. Excellent sophisticated production. It's not too tinny or slick like Talk. It's kind of slick, but it's sophisticated production rather. It's well crafted pop music. with some droppings of complexity. And I think it's too easily dismissed. I mean, I can listen to it. I can. To me, it's just it's a decent album. It's not great. It's definitely not 70s yes. I mean, it's not even 90125, but it's a decent album, and it's way more underrated than it's given credit for. The first few tracks are the most interesting, and it's better than Union or Talk. So, open your eyes. So, the next album, again, I said this could almost be tied with Open Your Eyes, and it is The Ladder, 1999. The opener, Homeworld, is excellent. When I first heard it, I thought, yes, is back. It's got that progressive rock sound, but it's 90s, a little bit of 90s gloss, a little bit of 90s pop, but overall, it's got that progressive bent to it, and I really enjoy that. I'm glad Yes brought that back. I got excited for a minute, and then I heard the rest of the album after that, and it's sterile at best. A bunch of okay, kind of boring to sometimes intolerable tracks. But it's attached to a great opener, and to me that's a shame, because they proved with Homeworld, the opening track, that they still had the gift. They still had the ability to create a complex, beautiful masterpiece of a song. So one great song, the remainder's a bench of third stringers. Next is another album. This one I think came out in 2001, maybe. But this album is called Magnification. There's some great music on here, but to me it's just way too new agey. Kind of that John Anderson, new agey syrup smearing stuff for my taste. I'm just not into that. I know Anderson loves to do that, airy fairy, whatever. I'm not a big fan of that. I like, music like Close to the Edge and music from Fragile, music from the earlier editions of Yes. There were elements of that airy fairy stuff, but it didn't get out of hand, in other words, and turn into some sort of new age album or something. And that's what I think of when I hear a lot of John Anderson. This is not a bad album. I sound like I'm trashing it. I'm not. It shouldn't be as magnified as it is. So, but it's a solid album. Magnification, In the Presence Of, is a good song. There's several tracks off this offering that are well worth your time to listen to. The only thing that I would say is, it's better than most of the previous stuff, in the past decade that was offered, but it still doesn't quite do it for me. It's just, to me, it's overall solid album. After a bunch of not solid albums, but to me, it's like medium range Yes at best. So, okay, next is an album that a lot of people love. And this album is called, I do not know why in the world that was echoing on me. But anyway, this album is called Drama. It's dark, It's heavier version of Yes. This is the first album that Yes released without John Anderson. At least the production is better than Tormato, which was released before this, but not by much. It's stripped down music, much like Tormato, but with better songs. The Jeffrey Downs and Trevor Horn from the Buggles came in and joined the band at this point. Rick Wakeman and John Anderson had left the band. So this was the offering that you got. I think it was 1980s when this album came out. Not a bad effort, but it is overrated to me. A lot of people just gush on this album. And to me, it's a good album. It's a good album. Just not great. But to me, it's like Yes's first real rock album. So Fly From Here is the next album. And this album is actually quite interesting because you have an album that features another new singer, not John Anderson. This one was Benoit David. And he gets trashed on a lot. And I don't understand why. I think he's a really good singer. He didn't sound exactly like Anderson, but he sounded kind of like Anderson. He sounded kind of like himself. It's unlike the dude they got now, who is just a John Anderson clone, basically. But I think he offered a unique vocal sound to the album. But anyways, they're back to their progressive roots in this album. And I think this album came out in 2011. But the original concept was way earlier than that. I think even back in the 80s when the concept came out for it. But they released this album with the new singer. It's much lamer and poppier than, Fragile or Close to the Edge, of course. But it still shouldn't be dismissed. The production's very good. It's a bit slicker than I like normally, but, after 2 decades of subpar offerings, I'll embrace this a little bit. It's a strong album. One thing I like about it is it lacks that sort of new age goo from Anderson's later works. So that's very tolerable to me. It's a little bit more mysterious, darker sound, than a regular Yes album. A little bit more haunting, I think. Love the artwork. Love the epic Fly From Here, which is divided into sections like a proper progressive suite. Just a fantastic newer version to listen to. This is probably the best album of the new era. Yes, it's probably the best album since Going for the One. However, I have got one album that is between Going for the One and this album ranked above Fly From Here. I really didn't want to because I think Fly From Here is a better album as far as like bringing you back to the roots of Yes. And I'm going to get slammed for this probably, but my next album is 90125. Sorry. It's just an excellent pop record. No, it's not Close to the Edge. No, it's not Fragile. No, it's not the Yes album or Relayer. But it's better than Tormato. It's excellent pop music. And Trevor Rabin, I don't think gets enough credit for saving Yes in the 80s. Now, did he change Yes and turn them into a pop band? Sure. But it wasn't until Big Generator when they really dismissed their progressive roots. This is not straight pop music. This is not Yes selling out so much yet. This is definitely pop music, but it's more complex than the straightforward pop music of the 80s. 90125 is full of complicated structures, advanced compositions, multiple harmonies, songs with change-ups in it, transitions, and it's even if it is kind of brought down by 80s production standards. I mean, you got the 80s sound, but it was the 80s. So, does it affect the album? Yes, it does. It makes it sound dated. It makes it sound cheap a lot of times. But for 80s production, it was good. But to say that it was not progressive in any format is just foolishness. Compared to most 80s pop artists during this time, this is a progressive pop album. If that if that term exists. If it doesn't, I just invented it. So yes, it is pop, but it's really good pop, and it does have a lot of prog workings in it. And the album after this, Big Generator, is a different story. But to say that they sold out here didn't happen. So now we've got the next album. So, Time and a Word. Time and a Word was the second album released by Yes. It does have some quality tracks on it. Of course, the self-titled Time and a Word. I think Then is off this album. Astral Traveler, which is highly one of the favorite Yes songs. Sweet Dreams is my favorite song off the album. It's more of a pop song, but I just love the way it comes in. Doom, 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 doom. Sweet Dream. I love that. So, the only thing about this album, though, I think it's a step back from the debut album. The production is just sort of a mess. The keyboards, to me, this is my opinion, too dominant, and it hurts what could have been a much better album if it had been better produced. And I think that's because they have a lot of this orchestration in it as well. There are, like I said, some excellent songs, and there are some hat grabbers. The debut album was not as complex as this album. This album's a little bit more complex. Gives you a little bit more insight of what you're gonna see later on coming from Yes. But the debut album, I think, sounds better as far as the production level. So yeah, step back a little bit, but not by much. It's still a classic Yes album. So Time and a Word. Next, and gosh, Yes has so many albums that's wearing me out. Relayer is the next album. This is number one on some people's list. Very progressive album. To me, I would describe it as sort of like the celestial King Crimson. It's like if Starless and Bible Black died and went to John Anderson Kingdom of Yonder somewhere. So yeah, very experimental album. Probably the most experimental album Yes ever made. It's mostly jazz oriented, kind of prog, jazz fusion kind of prog sound. Lots of textures, extremely intricate, complex musical forms, music mixed with chaos and beauty. It's just a lot of, it's like a cacophony of everything. But where it suffers is there's very little accessibility to like the general audience, other than the edit of Soon, which is an extremely good song, and is really a part of Gates of Delirium, which is my favorite song off the album, which is the opening track as well. So my only issue with it personally is that it not as accessible as something like Close to the Edge or Fragile. But to deny this is essential, yes, is foolish. It is. It's a great album. Relayer. So the next album we're going to talk about, let me pull up my list here because this is just, gosh, they have so many albums. Okay, so the next album is the album they released after Relayer, and it's called Going for the One. And really, Relayer and Going for the One, I could almost flip-flop. But Relayer, Going for the One has some incredible music. Awaken, Parallels, even Going for the One, which is a little weird because it starts out kind of like a country flavored little riff that starts out Going for the One. But it's overall engaging album. The only thing that I have against this album that it was kind of feel like it was dipped thrice in John Anderson Heavenly Goo. This is the album where he basically takes over to the point that it's too Gates of Heavenish. It's a beautiful album. I do enjoy it, but it's just like, my goodness, John, do you not have any darkness in you? So anyway, so Turn of the Century and Wonderful Stories are just two soap and bubbles for me. Again, I do enjoy Awaken, I do enjoy Parallels, I do enjoy Going for the One. So they kind of rescue it for me from the depths of preciousness. So now we're going to go to the next album. The next album is the debut album. A lot of people rank this one a little bit lower, especially lower than Going for the One Relayer, but I do not. I rank it higher because this is my list and this is my choice, and that's what I choose to do. So, yes, the debut album, mostly it's not really prog as much as it's sort of like a British jazzy psychedelic proto-prog album. Several really good songs on it. Beyond and Before, I See You, which is a cover. There's a lot of covers on this. I See You's a cover. I think Every Little Thing She Does, that's a cover. But I do enjoy even John Anderson's sort of hippie-ish, Sunlight Love Song, Yesterday and Today. I enjoy that. But to me, the peak quality of this album is in the final track, which gives you a kind of a peek into the future of what Yes is going to be like. And that is the song Survival. And to me, this album is a solid album. It is very accessible. Survival is already a progressive or proto-progressive type song. I love the beginning of it. It's one of my favorite Yes songs. Dun, 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 dun. It sort of gives you a little bit. It's like the little brother to Yours Is No Disgrace or something. It's a really the bridge between old Yes and what was to come as far as the prog Yes, sort of the bridge between psychedelia and progressive rock. So Yes, the debut album. Okay, so now we're getting down to the final. There it goes again. Why is it doing that? So now we're going to get down to the final few albums. I don't know why this stupid recording program keeps doing this. Okay, so the next album is going to be Tales from Topographic Oceans. This one a lot of people see as bloated and overblown, and pretentious and all that, and it probably is, but basically it's 4 songs on a double album, so each song takes up a side, 4 sides. So it's like the epic album of epics. Very stretched, very progressive. It is a concept album, loosely, I suppose. The songs to me that really stand out, I love the opening track. I love the Revealing Science of God. I love the Ritual. Overall, the album is essential prog. It's very very ambitious, very mysterious, not a lot of airy-fairy stuff in it. There's a lot of good things, I think, in this album. It's just, it kind of drags a little bit in some areas. So, it could have been cut down and made a little bit better, but, it is what it is. And to me, it is still quality, yes, classic, yes, strong album, something that I do listen to. And since I listened to at least 2 of the 4 songs on the album, or even 3, I listened to the whole album when I listened to it, but there's 2 songs I like, 3, So yeah, it has to be ranked pretty high, and it is, like I said, it is one of their progressive masterpieces. Now the next album is going to be 1971's Fragile. Again, a lot of people rank this one as their number 1 album. It could easily be anybody's number 1 album. It is essential. It is a masterpiece of progressive rock. Every song. So, the interesting thing about this album was, like Ummagumma in 1969 with Pink Floyd, each member wrote a track or wrote a song. That's kind of what happened here with this album. They did have some songs that the band themselves wrote for the album, but they also have divided up little sections of, for John Anderson and Chris Squire and Steve Howe, etc., etc. So, there was that element of it, but you really can't tell. And this album has such classics as Heart of the Sunrise, South Side of the Sky, Roundabout, which is probably their most popular prog song. It's just full of classic masterpiece songs. Some of the greatest songs in Yes catalog is on this album, and the next one that I'm going to mention. So these are staples of progressive rock and classic rock as well, and gems in the world of overall music. So Yes is Fragile, one of the greatest progressive rock albums ever written, comes in at number 3. So number 2. This album is really a tie with Fragile. It's really a tie with number 3, but personally, and this is a personal list, it ranks a little bit more because it's the first Yes album I ever heard. So, I happen to like this one just a teeny weeny bit more. Maybe it's nostalgia or whatever. But still, they're almost like twins. They're different, but a beautiful pair put together. The classic songs from this album are the epitome of Yes. Yours Is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper, Perpetual Change. I've Seen All Good People. The entire album is just nothing but Yes. I don't want to use the term hits, but basically that's what it is. It's Yes, quintessential Yes falling out of the album. into your lap or into your ears. It is the Yes album. That's probably why they call it that, because the name is fitting. The Yes album coming in at number 2. So of course the number 1 album is the magnum opus, the everything, the album that has 3 songs on it, that has the minimalist cover, and is the number 1 album on Prog Archives for a reason. Close to the Edge is number 1. The songs Close to the Edge, And You and I, Siberian Control, all 10s. All 10s out of 10. So that makes this album perfect. And to me, it is the perfect Prog album. It is in my top 5 greatest albums of all time. The emotion in this album, the skills, musicianship skills in this album, the creativity, the ambition, the risk, the concept, the presentation, the performance, everything. This album is pure magic. It is the